I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me, go ahead, announce for president. Challenge me at the convention.
Those are fighting words from the leader of the Democratic Party and the leader of the free world. I'm sick and tired of the elites. And by the way, if people think they can challenge me. Declare that you're going to run. Everybody who's run against me has lost. I like that President Biden is out there and fighting back. And take a look at some of these responses to President Biden's criticism of the elites by the elites. Here's what Chuck Todd said. He goes, Biden's anger at elites is a bit misplaced. Without the elites, he would have had a serious primary foe. Without the elites, the no labels effort would have a compelling ticket. Arguably, it's the elites who put too much faith in Biden that got the Dems in this position. What position are you referring to? Perhaps Chuck Todd and your ilk who have lost the plot and want to lose democracy to fascism should look in the mirror about what losers you have become. And there's a reason why the MeidasTouch network is growing and people are leaving all of you losers for statements like that. And by the way, just take a look at this, because the New York Times can't ever, no matter what President Biden does, they can never compliment him. This is the most New York Times story ever. Then I'm going to show you more President Biden pushing back in a moment from that powerful interview that he gave with Morning Joe, with Joe and Mika. A remarkable comeback is the title of this article. This is the kind of thing we couldn't have dreamed about 5 or 6 years ago, one expert said about changes in some American counties. America's so-called left-behind counties, the once great manufacturing centers and other distressed places that struggled mightily at the start of this century, have staged a remarkable comeback. In the last 3 years, they added jobs and new businesses at their fastest pace since Bill Clinton was president. The turnaround has shocked experts. They then cite an expert, and then this is how they end the article. I'll also show the one indicator that helps explain why voters might not reward President Biden for the good news that has happened on his watch. That's what President Biden was talking about. I'm sick and tired of the elites who run a story like that and then say, and this is why it's bad for President Joe Biden that his Infrastructure Act and Inflation Reduction Act has led to a renaissance of manufacturing jobs in the United States of America. But let's just parrot and put in print, quite literally, anything that Donald Trump says. Let's just go back to that full clip of what President Biden was saying there that I led with. Here, play this clip.
Chance, number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch. I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me, go ahead, announce for president. Challenge me at the convention. You know, on Europe, the polls are wrong in France. They're also right. There's no right wave or tide here in America either. By the way, in case you're wondering whether there is one, have you ever seen Trump run away so fast from what he's for? You know he's going to do it anyway. But he's such a liar. This guy, everybody knows what they're planning to do.
Here's President Biden calling into Morning Joe and saying, I'm not just the presumptive, I'm the president of the United States. I'm going to be the Democratic nominee. I am the president, period. Play this clip.
Of the United States and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden calling in to Morning Joe right now. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Mika, I'm more than presumptive. I'm going to be the Democratic nominee.
There you go.
Okay, well, Mr. President, that leads to the letter that we just received a few minutes ago. And I'm curious, there's a part of it where you talk about the fact that you got 14 million votes, 87% of the vote It was an open process. You only had—
And here's President Biden on Morning Joe saying this idea that Donald Trump gained after the debate, y'all are just making this up at this point. Play this clip.
Number one. And I've gone over the country for several reasons. One, to make sure my instinct was right about the party still wanting me to be the nominee. And all the data shows that the average Democrat out there who voted, the 14 million of them that voted for me, still want me to be the nominee, number one. Number two, the idea that Donald Trump has gained in any substantial way, has his argument to why he should be president is anywhere convincing than it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. It's just not there. And we're just starting to focus on Trump. And look, I attended services, spoke to over 600 people at Mount Airy Church of God in Christ in Philly. I stopped by campaign field offices with John Fetterman and Madeline Dean, both strongly supporting me. The president and the first lady, we spoke at a campaign ice cream social for AFSCME, Council 13 in Harrisburg. 40 minutes after we spoke with supporters, stopped by Denim Coffee. I mean, I was with the governor of Pennsylvania, who's still strongly supporting me. I mean, so look, and the fact is that this week I'm going to be hosting NATO Summit here in D.C., going to hold a press conference on Thursday. On Wednesday, I met with the national union leaders of AFL-CIO. On Friday, I traveled to Detroit, Michigan for a campaign event. Just on down the line. And so I'm not getting any of what I was told. I wanted to make sure I was right, that the average voter out there still wanted Joe Biden. And I'm confident they do. And I'm confident, and like I said, the press is with me. I think they've been fairly fair. I haven't read any reporting they did today. But the fact is that, I think they have to acknowledge we had large crowds, enthusiastic crowds. And, and now they're talking about whether I use a prompter. Well, I did it all extemporaneously. The fact of the matter is, I was using prompters too. I don't get that. But at any rate, the bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nominating process where the voters spoke clearly. I won 14 million of those votes, et cetera. So I not only believe that from the beginning, but I wanted to reassert it and demonstrate that it's true. And I'm going to be doing that all through this week and from here on.
And then President Biden says, I haven't lost. What are you talking about? I'm the only person who's beaten Donald Trump. I'm going to beat him again. And if you look at what I've done for the American people, I've consistently delivered on my word. Why don't we talk about that? Here, play the clip.
The question, how would you feel if Donald Trump beat you? How would you feel after you lost? And you said, well, as long as I did the best I could do, that's the most important thing. That's caused Democrats concern who believe that losing is not an option. What would you say to those who are concerned by that answer?
It's not an option, and I've not lost. I haven't lost. I beat him last time. I'll beat him this time. And this is a guy who, look, we talk about debates. Look at his performance with debates. He lied over, Trump has 50 lies. Look, this is a guy who says 10% of the universe. I want to get into it. He's just a liar. And he hasn't done a damn thing since the debate. He's been riding around in a golf cart for 10 days or down in Mar-a-Lago talking with his wealthy friends. I'm not running because of these guys, Joe. I'm running because, and you know me well enough to know this from the very beginning, I ran because I never bought on in the trickle-down economic theory. I never bought into the notion that we have to walk away from the rest of the world and cave to Putin or anybody else. I've never believed any of that. And I'm confident that's what the American people are. So what I did was I went out and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any slippage at all. And with the average voter, I don't care what the millionaires think. And by the way, 97% of all the people who contribute to us are people making under 200, contributing under $200. I think we have the largest contingent ever in history. I'm not positive of that, but I think that's true. And so I want their support, but that's not the reason I'm running. I'm not running about what they think or what they care about. And by the way, you don't see a whole hell of a lot of them flocking to Trump. You don't see a whole lot of CEOs flocking to Trump. You don't see any. You see the major economists out there talking about what I have been able to do. I don't hear anybody talking about his economic plan likely to bring America around and keep America first. And by the way, here's Trump talking about all that he's done and you know, Trump and his debate night. He's a pathological liar. He lied about Roe. He refused to accept the outcome of the election. He refused to condemn January 6th. And he says, they claim, he spoke with Putin before he invaded. What the hell are we doing, Joe? What are we doing? This is bizarre.
And then President Biden is asked a question about how can you assure Americans that what happened in Atlanta is not going to happen again? He's like, look at my career. Look what I've done for the American people. Here, play the clip.
The fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be on you know, faith that can intervene on your way to go to, you know, work tomorrow? Age wasn't, you know, the idea I'm too old. Created over 15 million jobs, 21 million insured for the ACA, beat Big Pharma, relieved student debts for 5 million people, first black woman in the court. So I think I had a significant run, and that's how I'd measure me. Measure me what I've done. And by the way, in terms of my neurological capacity, I had a neurological physical as well in February. It's released. I released all my records, all of them. And I have a neurological test every single day. Try sitting behind this desk and making these decisions. You know it. Both of you know it. They know it. I'm not bad at what I do. And now, it doesn't mean I never make a mistake. I do. But I'm making those decisions.
And then Morning Joe and Mika start mentioning people who are now attacking President Biden, like David Axelrod and people like that. And here's what President Biden has to say. Play this clip.
Go to Julian Castro, Tim Ryan, David Axelrod, David Remnick, Richard Haas. Yeah, I know which one you're responding to there. Zeke Emanuel. But they're saying that you should step aside. So what is your plan of attack moving forward? These are pretty big names.
Is to go out and keep doing their big names. But I don't care what those big names think. They were wrong in 2020. They're wrong in 2022 about the red wave. They're wrong in 2024. And come out with me. Watch people react. You make a judgment. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'm going to have all these foreign leaders here. I've been in contact with the new British Prime Minister. Anyway, look, the country, the rest of the world is looking. Our allies are looking for U.S. leadership. Who else do you think could step in here and do this? I expanded NATO. I solidified NATO. Ask your brother about it in Poland. I made sure that we're in a position where we have a coalition of people, of the nations around the world to deal with China, with Russia, with everything that's going on in the world. We're making real progress. The Biden plan, which got in Israel for the Gaza Strip, is something that was adopted by the UN Security Council. Whether it comes to fruition, it's awful close. We'll see. G7's okay. But look, I'm not going to explain any more about what I should or shouldn't do. I am running. Mm-hmm. And if you want to stop me,
President Biden then addresses Donald Trump trying to distance himself from Project 2025. Play the clip.
No. This guy is going to rip away at a woman's right to choose in a permanent way. This guy is going to make sure that he exacts revenge. This guy's going to destroy democracy. This guy's going to give a blank check to the Supreme Court, and he's going to use its past the 2025 agenda. You know, this guy's extremely dangerous. But you notice he doesn't speak up for what he really is for. He's all of a sudden realizing, oh my God, nobody's for what I'm for. But anyway, look, and again, think of the things he lied about. He talked about he gave the largest tax cut in history. Yeah, he gave the largest tax cut in history to millionaires and billionaires. He said that he's going to, the 10% universal tax proposal is not going to drive prices higher. Every major economist in the world is saying it's going to drive it average $2,500 per person. Only jobs we created for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs and bounce back from COVID. Give me a break. That's what he said at the convention. At the debate. Everything he said. He said, he largely fixed COVID.
President Biden then wraps up his interview with Morning Joe with some thoughts on Trump. Play the clip.
Time has been more extreme. He makes George Wallace look like a patriot.
President Joe Biden, let's make this a thing. Thank you for calling in. We really appreciate it. And thank you for answering our questions.
If you're willing to hear from me, I'm willing to talk to you. Thank you very much.
We will take it on a regular basis.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Greatly appreciated.
President Joe Biden.
Then let me just share this with you because I thought this is a very, very powerful statement here by David Lurie. And I think he just perfectly hits the bullseye here. David Lurie, he goes, history teaches one clear lesson. When a nation's democratic institutions are facing an existential risk, relentlessly opposing that threat should be the sole focus. Over the last decade, elites in the U.S. have forgotten that lesson. We are paying a huge price for that. During the decades preceding the Civil War, the South's slaveholding oligarchs became ever more extremist as they perceived a threat to the institution of human ownership on which their wealth and power was grounded. They used every political tool, and particularly their long outsized power within the institutions of the federal government, to further their extremist agenda. The enslaver agenda reached its apotheosis in the Dred Scott decision, in which the Supreme Court, packed with pro-slavery jurists, recognized a constitutional right to own humans and purported to void the Missouri Compromise's limitation on the growth of slavery in the West. But extremism of the enslaver oligarchs was met with an equally vehement response. A new party, the Republicans, then rapidly grew with a singular agenda of opposing the power grab of the Southern oligarchs. The party was not initially dominated by abolitionists, and its opposition to slavery was not initially grounded on a recognition of its moral repugnance, and the vehemence with which its radical Republican faction would eventually take on the project of rooting out slavery was matched by some repugnant attributes, including more than a tinge of xenophobia. But what was to become the party of Lincoln was grounded on a recognition of the singular threat that the enslaver oligarchs posed to the nation. The Dred Scott decision has made crystal clear to Lincoln and his fellow Republicans the enslavers' agenda was not only amoral, it left no room for the continuation of the Republic, and therefore it had to be opposed, including by the majority of white Americans who were themselves racist. By the time the Southern oligarchs formed the Confederacy and declared war in 1861, the nation had elected its first Republican president who exemplified his party's recognition that the preservation of the Republic against the extremist assault was not only important, it was essential to the survival of the Republic. While the radical Republicans and Lincoln himself were hardly moral paragons, their relentlessness was essential to the preservation of the nation and to the eventual end of slavery. Furthermore, it was their loss of power in the wake of Lincoln's murder that allowed for the resuscitation of the Southern oligarchy, aided and abetted by the political and economic allies in the North. Why do I offer this very, very abbreviated count of many decades-old history? Because, as I noted at the outset, and has only become increasingly clear over the past 7 years, the nation is now facing a similarly existential threat to its democratic institutions. But unlike during the 19th century, and despite the fact that right-wing extremists pose an existential threat to both the democratic and economic structures that most Americans favor and rely upon, there is no equivalent to the nascent Republican Party in place and growing to oppose, through and with the support of the nation's elites, the existential threat. To the precise contrary, as the dark farce of the past week again demonstrated, the nation's non-fascist elites not only remain utterly incapable of forming, leading an institutional response to the threat, but in substantial respects are actually becoming part of the threat. The nature and reality of the threat can't reasonably be denied as it was by many in 2016. A Supreme Court packed with extremists just invited a coup plotter to become a dictator, quite literally. But the elites of this nation, including but not limited to its journalists and non-fascist economic and political leaders, lack unity, let alone the institutional organization and commitment required to successfully oppose the threat. Where are our radical Republicans when we need them? And I say to you, David Laurie, they are here. In the pro-democracy community, we call ourselves the Meidas Mighty, and we support, defend, and protect our democracy, which we've been doing each and every day, and which we continue to do. We are Democrats, we are independents, we are mainstream Republicans, we are liberals, we are progressives, we are none of the above, we are conservatives, we are libertarian, we are whoever. As long as you're committed to pro-democracy, to compassion, to respecting equality and dignity in all Americans and all in this world, and you support our democracy and oppose this MAGA fascist threat, there's room for you in this pro-democracy movement. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million together. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.